Stephanopoulos starts right now.
The president gets COVID.
Wasn't feeling so well. I feel much better now. We're working hard to get me all the way back.
Trump hospitalized after worsening symptoms require oxygen in the White House.
The oxygen saturation levels. We yesterday morning we were real concerned with that.
Has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now, he is not on oxygen.
I know you, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today, he was not on oxygen.
He had a fever and his blood oxygen level had dropped rapidly.
Conflicting accounts from the president's doctor and his staff create a crisis of credibility.
I know a number of us, the doctor and I, were very concerned.
He's in such great spirits and doing well.
Why was the decision made to transfer him here?
Because he's the president of the United States.
As the virus spreads through the White House, Trump's campaign, and the Senate.
3 more people tested positive for the virus.
Pope Hicks testing positive.
Kellyanne Conway tweeted, "Tonight I tested positive."
2 GOP senators on the Senate Judiciary Committee have tested positive for COVID.
It seems to grow by the minute, mounting questions about the safety of the president, the stability of our country, and the state of the race for the White House in this final month of voting.
This is not a matter of politics. It's a bracing reminder to all of us that we have to take this virus seriously. I look forward to finishing up the campaign the way it was started.
From BBC News, this is a special edition of This Week. Here now, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. What a week it has been. When we signed off last week's show, here's what we didn't know. That President Trump had paid just $750 in income tax in 2016 and 2017. On the hook now for several $100 million.
Oh, brother, you don't know if that's true.
But Tuesday's debate would be widely labeled the worst presidential debate ever, with President Trump bearing most of the blame. That the Rose Garden ceremony celebrating Judge Amy
Here's another
Coney's
one.
nomination to the Supreme Court would turn out to be a super spreader for the coronavirus. As we come on the air this morning, at least 8 of the attendees have tested positive for COVID, including, of course, First Lady Melania Trump and the President of the United States. And with President Trump now being treated at Walter Reed, the country is now facing a cascade of crises in a chaotic year. A personal health crisis for the President, compounded by a credibility crisis for his White House during a public health crisis that has cost more than 209,000 Americans.
Well, like the mainstream media doesn't have a credibility problem.
We're going to try to make sense of it all this morning, starting with our team of correspondents. John Carl is at Walter Reed, and John, the repetition of
Stephanopoulos is a Clinton guy.
The hallmark of the Trump White House.
Bill and Hillary Clinton. He cut checks to. He used to work for them.
On one hand, it was a welcome development to see the White House doctor come out and brief reporters, but it was frankly maddening to see the medical team refuse to answer so many questions and to be spinning as if this were just another political briefing. Dr. Conley refused to answer basic questions such as, how high is the president's temperature? He would not say. Has the president been on supplemental oxygen? As you saw, he wouldn't say. We later learned that, in fact, on Friday, the president was on oxygen.
This guy's got a lot of warts on his face for lying. That's what happens when you lie so much.
The president had been fever-free for 24
Get
hours.
warts.
He, quote, is doing great. But minutes after that briefing ended yesterday, a person described as somebody familiar with the president's health briefed the press pool here and said, quote, the president's vitals over the last 24 hours were very concerning, and the next 48 hours will be critical in terms of his care. We are still not on a clear path to a full recovery. That starkly different assessment. Multiple news organizations identified the person as none other than the president's chief of staff, Mark Meadows.
Yeah, we already know
We
that.
learned that yet another person close to the president has tested positive for coronavirus. Nick Luna, that's the president's personal aide, somebody who travels with him virtually everywhere he goes. He has been tested positive for coronavirus. Perhaps the most reliable information throughout all of this actually came from the president himself with a 4-minute video that he posted to Twitter yesterday. And George, I've got to say, the president looks good for somebody going through all that he is going through right now.
Not too shabby, yeah. It looks pretty good. It's getting better.
Commander Sean Connolly yesterday.
Great news.
Professional care, but they also seem to be used as political props.
They absolutely
Here's this lunatic.
George, and these are
She did that terrible
doctors
debate.
should not be spin doctors.
Navy officers, not political appointees. So you saw Dr. Connolly and the others come out there and give that briefing with very little information, kind of cute in ways, saying he wasn't on oxygen today. That
Well, she was
should
pretty
not be happening.
cute with Anderson Cooper.
Prestigious
Anderson
position.
Cooper
They may not have training
on that debate
or anything like
with
this.
Hillary. They're pretty
Surgeon
cute.
care of the President of the United States, but they have to stick to the facts. They are not, again, spin doctors. You know, I've traveled.
Why don't
all
you
over
stick to the
world,
facts
George.
during the
I've been to
debates?
North Korea. Remember last May when people thought Kim Jong-un might be dead? It's because people absolutely
Nobody
didn't
likes this
believe the
lady.
information they were getting. That happens in North Korea. It should not happen.
America hates you.
So, Dr. Jan,
And
as
Chris
we cut through
Wallace.
the spin and focus on what the doctors are doing for the president, let's talk about that rather than what everybody is saying. What are the various treatments they've been giving the president? The hospitalization, the Regeneron, the remdesivir. Tell you about the course of treatment and potentially the president's condition.
Well, the big picture view here, George, from the clinical treatment aspect is that the president is getting early and aggressive treatment for what has heretofore been described as mild COVID-19 disease. He's being treated with both an immune therapy, that antibody cocktail by Regeneron, which is under compassionate use authorization, and then antiviral therapy, remdesivir, which pretty much is the standard of care now in hospitalized patients, both of which given very early in the course of disease, indicating his medical team not taking any chances that this disease will or could progress, doing as much as they can. Obviously, in medicine, there are no guarantees, regardless of how aggressive the treatment is. And in terms of predictions here, George, I want to emphasize and be crystal clear, in medicine, you evaluate a patient hour by hour, day by day. We avoid at all costs making long-term prognosis, especially in a situation like this with a virus so new, so variable, so mysterious that has shown us
How
time
can you?
after time.
That's why they call it the novel coronavirus, to cover it.
As you look at the cases, Dr. Jan, you have first the attack of the virus and then the immune system response, which is why everybody's concerned about that 7 to 10 day period.
But it's suspect. Why are they all Republicans who got it?
7 to 10 days, and let's be clear, it's not, 48 hours, 7 to 10 days, and then at the
It's an elephant in the room. Everybody's asking.
Someone's miraculously in the clear. You know, again, that's why we take things hour by hour and day by day. A lot of people asking about steroids here. That typically is not given early in the course of disease because that can actually worsen outcomes, but they are going to be on the lookout for complications of COVID, like clotting disorders anywhere in the body. They're going to be monitoring kidney and liver function, which can be affected by these medications and by COVID itself. And then they'll be keeping a close eye for that secondary immune phase that can be so dangerous.
Mary Bruce is covering the campaigns. No one knows for sure yet what this is going to mean for the ultimate outcome. We know it has had an immediate effect on how the teams are campaigning.
Yeah, and on both campaigns, George, we have seen the president's campaign trying to maintain some events, but of course without the president, much of this campaign has come to just a screeching halt. While Joe Biden is still going full steam ahead, we have seen him out there still keeping up his campaign events, but he is having to tweak his messaging. We have seen him tempering his usually sharp attacks against the president. He's taken down much of his negative campaign ads, and he is, though, continuing to argue, of course, that this is a very severe virus, that he is the best leader who can tackle this.
Yeah, but he hasn't denounced all the hate, the hatred, and calls for Trump dying from the Democrats.
For months that the president doesn't take it seriously, so it's hard to make that message while also being respectful of the president's diagnosis as he makes these overarching calls for unity. And of course, George, there are just so many questions about what comes next with these debates. The next face-off is set for just about 10 days from now on the 15th. Right now, it is very hard to see how that still goes on as planned.
You're also our senior congressional correspondent. This could have a huge impact on the confirmation battle for Judge Amy Coney Barrett. The Supreme Court, 3 Republican senators, Mary, have now tested positive for COVID.
3 Republican senators and 2 of them, George, Senators Lee and Tillis, are on the critical Judiciary Committee. We saw them there at those celebrations at the White House for Amy Coney Barrett's nomination. If they remain sidelined, it could effectively jeopardize and prevent Amy Coney Barrett from being confirmed. Republicans have no room for error here. Mitch McConnell is very well aware of that. He has said that COVID is the biggest threat to this confirmation. Now, right now, they are planning to go ahead with these hearings. Lindsey Graham, the chairman of the committee, is adamant about that, even if it means they have to break Senate norms and do much of this virtually. Democrats, of course, who have been eager to try and slow down this process, are calling for everyone to hit the pause button here.
And John Carl, right now at least, the Senate does not have the votes to confirm the justice, because you have to vote in person in the Senate.
That's right. There is no remote voting in the Senate. There is no proxy voting. As you know, you already have 2 senators who said that they would not go along with this confirmation on the Republican side. Add 3 that simply cannot be there because they are self-isolating. And the bottom line is Mitch McConnell, at least at this moment, does not have the votes to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed. He has to hope that those 3 senators recover and that no more Republican senators come down with COVID-19.
And finally, Martha Raddatz, I wonder about the lingering impact of the country seeing Marine One heading towards Walter Reed.
That was such a moment, George, and we, of course, talked about that together when that happened. The country is going to remember that, and it's great to see that the president looked so good in that video, but as Jen Ashton said, we don't know what happens next. We don't know when we'll see that helicopter bring President Trump back. Of course, he does not want to look weak. That's part of this campaign as well. That's part of who Donald Trump is. He wants to look strong and macho. This is very difficult for him.
He is strong.
This is very difficult for the
He is macho.
and for his supporters to see as well.
More macho than Joe Biden. He'll take him behind the gym, knock him upside the head,
Jason, thank you for joining us.
go to toe to toe.
Let me start with a question about your personal health.
Put all my money on Trump.
Participants in the president's debate prep, including Chris Christie, who works for ABC right now, have now tested positive for COVID. Are you still negative? When was the last time you were tested?
Yes, and thank you for having me on this morning, George. I have tested negative, as has my entire family, so we're very thankful for that. And that was on Friday when I took my last test, and so I'm continuing to social distance and wear a mask, and be very careful and wash my hands and keep distance from folks, use hand sanitizer. So very thankful that I tested negative, as did Stephen Miller and Mayor Giuliani. And for those who did test positive, namely President Trump, we're hoping that he gets back on his feet in no time at all, and he seems to be doing very well. George, I did have the opportunity to speak with the president for about a half hour yesterday, both myself and Bill Stepien, our campaign manager, and the president sounded pretty good.
Thoughts, prayers, and
well.
45 bucks to the Trump campaign.
Asking questions about the campaign and
Trump
We're
45.
going to have some new TV ads to show him. So he's feeling good and talking about this. But he said a couple of really important things I want to make sure that I share with the American public that are watching this morning. Number one, that we're going to defeat this virus. President Trump personally is going to defeat it. As a nation, we're going to defeat it and get life back to normal, get this vaccine. But then also, our campaign is going to defeat it. And I think when President Trump gets out of the White House, or gets back to the White House, back on the campaign trail, that's going to be a slingshot taking us forward. But he said something else that was very important, George, and that's to be careful, to make sure that folks are washing their hands, to make sure they're using hand sanitizer, to make sure they're wearing a mask if you can't socially distance. These are all important things and reminders that President Trump told us.
It's good to hear the president saying that now. I mean, there's been real questions about whether he's been taking it seriously enough up until his diagnosis. In fact, we have a new poll out this morning with Ipsos that says 3 in 4 Americans, 72%, say the president didn't take the risk of getting COVID seriously enough and didn't take the appropriate precautions when it came to his personal health. What do you say to them?
They're all asking Democrats.
Look at the early action that the president took, both with closing down the country and making sure that
I don't believe their polls for 1 minute.
Europe at a time when he received a lot of criticism from
Fake polls.
Folks saying it was xenophobic or saying it was racist. Obviously, shut down the country for 2 weeks and then for an additional month to go and keep us safe. And what that did is that flattened the curve. That allowed us to make sure that we started developing these therapeutics, that we started getting the vaccine developed, that we got the ventilators, 100,000 ventilators built. And George, I think there's a really important point here, is that President Trump had to take this head on. He had to get out there as the leader, not just of the country, but of the free world, and take this head on. This is a general in the field type moment that he couldn't just stay upstairs, hidden in the Lincoln bedroom or in the White House. He couldn't stay hidden in his basement saying, I'm going to shut down forever. People in this country, George, want to get life back to normal.
That's true.
You certainly can't hide under the desk like Monica Lewinsky did.
Hold rallies where people did not social distance, where did not wear masks. He didn't have to mock former Vice President Joe Biden for wearing a mask and reporters who wore a mask. He didn't have to continue to go to event after event without wearing a mask.
But I would,
Are you serious? This guy's
back on that because President Trump
near death here with this corona, and they asking stupid questions like this. Have some respect for a president.
As someone who spends a lot of time with the president, the
People are
protocols and things
disrespectful.
that I go through. So if I'm going to be spending time with
All
the
of
president
them.
or other team members, first of all, we're tested.
Including Chris Wallace, Joe Biden.
About a full hour space from the time
All
we're
of them.
tested until we make sure that we're in the clear. We keep distance from the president at all
The
times.
Lone Ranger, the guy from
Saturday,
Scrubs.
president is about,
I gotta cut this short,
8 feet,
guys.
maybe 6 feet, usually